Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men Volume 2, number 36, cover dated September 1994. And this is part 2 of Generation Next, which itself was part of that summer's Phalanx Covenant X book crossover series. Cover here by Andy Kubert and Matthew Ryan. This is a wraparound cover on cardstock paper with this holophile strip here. So it's a cool design. Every one of the crossover comics had this particular design on the cover, introducing the various new Generation X characters, this one being Everett Thomas, aka Synch. And here we see the full wraparound cover. That's pretty cool, by Andy Kubert and Matthew Ryan. And do you notice a little error here on this cover? Well, it's Banshee's costume, so it looks like he's back in the all new, all different Moore Island era costume, but it is not the case. So there's a coloring error here. This should be green, and we'll see that on the inside of the issue. So a dynamic cover. Sabretooth looks really excellent there, leaping forward, although it's a bit of a strange pose with his knee up here to the forefront, almost as if he's doing that kick from Karate Kid. But yeah, nice cover. Let's open this one up to the first page. Make sure you can see that nicely on camera. And we have a little bit of a prologue here. This is Monet's Sang-Kwa. She was absorbed, insofar as the Phalanx can absorb mutants, in the previous part of the crossover. That's Uncanny X-Men 316. You'll find my review of that on the channel. And she's here, and they are unable to assimilate her. So here she is, and the narrative captions tell us what the Phalanx Coven doesn't realize, as their attempts to co-opt the young girl named Monet Sang-Kwa, whom they kidnapped a day ago, meet with repeated failure, is that she is calmly taking this opportunity to learn as much about them as they are about her. And then what we get is we get a dialogue here between Cameron Hodge, who survived the climax of Extinction Agenda and has shown up as one of these Phalanx creatures or entities, and he still has his hatred for mutants driving him. And he's in dialogue here with Stephen Lang, who is the creator of the Phalanx entity, is human himself, and is not completely absorbed into the techno-organic entity, which is a lot like Star Trek's Borg in many ways. And here they are reviewing the next generation of mutants that they're determined to get their hands on and assimilate into the Phalanx. So we've got Paige Guthrie here, Jubilee, we have Synch, Blink, and Skin. And here we have the emergence of Stephen Lang, and we get this interesting set of narrative captions here. Great anchor image by Andy Kubert, really amplifying the horror of the character. The man who was once Dr. Stephen Lang says nothing, but the answer given by the Phalanx patterned after the template of Cameron Hodge freezes the blood in Lang's still human veins. Something is wrong with his creation. To end the mutant species he hates so much, has Lang unwittingly opened the way for all humanity to suffer as well? Because Cameron Hodge here has said to assimilate all solves the problems of opposition. To eliminate that which cannot be assimilated solves the problems of opposition. So Phalanx has evolved or developed into a totalitarian entity that looks like it might end up absorbing all organic sentient life on the planet. And as Lang here wonders about the evolution of the Phalanx beyond his expectations, we have this interesting little visual device for switching scenes to this young man who's addressing a group in front of him. You gentlemen have to be kidding me. We'll turn the page to the splash page to find out who he's talking to and who he is. But we have a switch here from wherever the Phalanx entity is, wherever its matrix is, to St. Louis, Missouri. So here we go. Drop the Leash is the name of this chapter of the crossover. And it's Generation Next Part 2, creative team, Fabian Nicieza, writer, Andy Kubert, penciler, Matt Ryan, inker, Bill Oakley, letterer, and Digital Chameleon, color art. So we have the digital color art here. Still, just at the moment, we don't have glossy paper, but that's on the way. That's coming shortly. So this is a really cool splash page of as it turns out, Everett Thomas standing on the stoop of his building and surrounded by these police officers with their arms and rifles pointed straight at him. It's a great angle here. Kubert doing a lot of work, putting a lot of work into this particular splash page. So they're basically asking him, every single window between Gravels and Grand was blown out. That's reckless endangerment, vandalism, maybe even negligent assault tacked on. So what was all that about, kid? So the narrative captions say, these are frightened. All the police understands is that this young man may be very dangerous. And so there they are pointing their weapons right at him. But he's cool, calm, and collected. And so he says, officers, relax. As I tried to explain earlier, the windows were only an after effect. I had my hands kind of full at the time. So you said, kid, says this guy, some sort of creatures made out of liquid metal. Like, we're supposed to believe that. And look what's happening in the background. This is great comic book storytelling by Kubert here. So these guys in the background, in silhouette and deep silhouette. Look, suddenly the red eyes here. Look at the red eyes again and the growth of this head and the police hat or cap. Just sitting on top of it. That's really nicely done. And then there they are right behind the real police officers. It's the Phalanx entities, looking pretty horrific as well. So Andy Kubert having fun here with these kind of demonic techno-organic creatures. And there's that hat again right on top of this one. That's pretty cool with the big fangs as well. And this is an interesting shot of Everett Thomas's face. It makes it look huge, like a big face off of Mount Rushmore. Look at the size of it there. So he sees the Phalanx entities and he knows that they're right behind the cops there. So there they are getting shocked and turning around. And let's see what happens. So one of these entities gets him by the throat. And it looks like things are going to go very badly for everyone. But suddenly there is this screech sound effect. And the house or the building behind them collapses down on the Phalanx. And Everett Thomas here says, well, that would explain my trick with the windows earlier, wouldn't it? I must have gotten in sync with someone in the area who had superpowers. So that's the way that Synch's powers work. He gets in sync with... now, he's not saying mutants. He's saying someone who had superpowers. So could he do the same thing with the likes of, I don't know, the Hulk or Spider-Man? That's an interesting question. If you know the answers to that, maybe let us know in the comments to this video. But the cavalry's arrived, and that's a great shot of Banshee. And you can see there the proper colouring of his new costume, which is a reconfiguration of his original costume. Looks very cool. And Sabretooth here launching into battle with his feet forward. And what happens here is it gives these Phalanx creatures pause. And it's interesting that the Phalanx are supposed to be able to counter mutants with particular powers, but for some reason, and we'll learn shortly why, they haven't been able quite to counter Banshee, but we'll learn why in a minute. There's something else I want to note here in respect of the layout on these two pages, and it's the use of these arrows here. So we go from this huge anchor image of Banshee and Sabretooth's arrival to the little arrow telling us to read down here, and then this one telling us to go up here. What I'm curious about is whether those are Andy Kubert's arrows or whether they're editorial, because in some regards you might want to look over here after this anchor image. So the arrow helps out. And I like the way that he's decided to leave out a background on this. We just have this top-down shot, wide open on the white background. It looks good. And again, I really like the design of these kind of horror Phalanx creatures, especially this one with the big maw of giant fangs. So Sabretooth grabs the young man, and once he's out of the way, Banshee can let rip with his sonic scream. And this is pretty good, so I'm going to read the captions here. The scream ripped from the depths of Sean Cassidy's soul is deafening, so intense it liquefies the techno-organic beings in its wake. That's brilliant. So that really is, you know, kind of emphasis on the fact for readers unfamiliar with Banshee, because he hasn't really been around in the X-Men comics for the past 3 years since he left the X-Mansion back in Adjectiveless X-Men #4. So here he is back, and he is back with a bang, right? And even Sabretooth is impressed. I always thought you had it in you, Irish. Nice to see it come out. And Synch too is impressed. Stop shouting, Creed, says Banshee as he stands over the wreckage of the Phalanx. And the two cops here, Muty said, should we arrest them? For what for? Saving our lives? I think not, officers. Your thanks will suffice. Now, Creed, what were you bellowing about, man? And Sabretooth says, it was just interesting to see a darker side of you, Irish. A little bit of me. And Banshee here says, aye, not as much as you'd like to see, boyo, perhaps, but more than enough for me, I assure you. So, yeah, Banshee is, to use the American colloquial expression, a bit of a badass in this issue and the previous part of the crossover too. So that's pretty cool. So then we get this switcheroo of scene to Jubilee, who's keeping watch here on the bonnet of this car, and Emma Frost, who's in this kind of green body glove for the crossover, not her usual costume. It's interesting design, and here we have a little bit of bickering between Emma Frost and Jubilee. And Emma says here, listen, Miss Frost, just because you're so bummed about what happened to your old students, the Hellions, doesn't mean that us young mutants shouldn't be seen or heard, because Frost has been telling her to get off the bonnet and stay out of view. And Jubilee keeps that up, keeps on needling her about the loss of the Hellions, and I don't think that's a good idea. And I think if Emma gave her a slap, Jubilee would have deserved it. So she explains here that you wonder why the humans walk by us without a second glance. Simple. I'm telepathically masking our presence from them. The less obtrusive we remain, the better for us. And it is a task made much easier for me, girl, if you would kindly keep quiet. So she's there and she's muttering on the bonnet of the car. Meanwhile, these people are coming right up behind her. And what do they turn out to be? Except for the Phalanx entities. So as her bubblegum bursts, this is pretty comical. She says, mit froth, ma'am, lady, I think we're in trouble. So that's pretty good. And then we have this insert that's in all the parts of the Phalanx crossover, this glossy insert. We've got the 2-page poster advertising the upcoming new title coming out in November, Generation X. Well, it'll be cover dated in November. And then just as in the first part of the crossover, you've got this 4-page guide, but not this time to Cyclops, but rather this time to Bishop, the once and future X-Man. So we get Bishop's story recounted across these 4 glossy pages, which is interesting. And it brings to our attention again the whole question of the X-Trader subplot as well. So that's intriguing. And then we have the house ad for the Phalanx Covenant crossover there, art by Joe Madureira and Terry Austin. And then we switch scenes to Cumberland County, Kentucky, and a quiet night farmhouse, but the quiet night is disrupted as the Phalanx come. And where are we exactly? Well, we're in the home of Paige Guthrie, and there's her mother. She's trying to save her daughter there, as the mother, well, the daughter rather, is trying to save the mother as she's being grabbed by these monstrous Phalanx figures. So we've got this wolf faced one, and we've got this dragon faced one as well. Again, I reckon Kubert was enjoying himself with these designs. And then we've got the rest of the children here. So Sam Guthrie's from a big family. That's Sam Guthrie, Cannonball. And this is his brother Josh, who tries to help his mother as well. So she's been pulled away by the entity, and she tells Paige, for pity's sake, girl, let go of me. Both of you, get the children out of here. But it was all a ruse. The Phalanx entity didn't want the mother, just wanted Paige. And once they have her, they depart. And there they zip away in their techno-organic form with this grinning, demonic face looking back at the children here. So, nice storytelling, nice use of the computer coloring here on this panel as well. Pretty cool stuff. Then we're back in St. Louis with Frost and Jubilee, and they're having to deal with these 3 Phalanx entities. And Emma thinks it's going to be curtains for them, so she tells Jubilee, here, stay behind me, girl, and close your eyes. But the entity is exploded. Who could it be? Well, it's Sabretooth and Banshee. Another really cool anchor image here. And Synch here in the background too. So what has happened thus far is that they haven't been able to deal with Banshee before designate. Banshee's wavelength spectrum has been analysed and compensated for. So Banshee is, when he modulates his sonic scream across the wavelength spectrum, the Phalanx are not able to compensate for that. So they're trying to analyse the entire spectrum in order to be able to deal with the scream. But so far, this gives Sabretooth, Synch here, and Banshee the upper hand. And then the Phalanx entity comes up with a new tactic to deal with Banshee's sonic scream. And it's simply this: solution found to designate Banshee's sonic cries. To prevent his shouts, place techno-organic matter inside his throat cavity. So, there's a big problem here now, and even Sabretooth is overwhelmed by the Phalanx entity. And the way it's solved is that Emma comes up with a plan, which is this: if Banshee's to live, I must become a telepathic conduit between you and Jubilee. So she's addressing Everett Thomas there. If I understand your mutant abilities correctly, Everett, you must see Jubilee through my eyes to access her pyrokinetic abilities with your own powers, and use her mutant gift in ways she's been afraid to. In short, by detonating the very matter with which these techno-organic beings are composed of on a subatomic level. So this is what happens. The explosion created by Everett Thomas in synchronous tune with Jubilation Lee makes the sonic wail of the Banshee seem like a mere whisper in comparison. The dust settles, the X-Men survive, the Phalanx at last for now have not. So Jubilee's aghast here. And this is something that was hinted at before, like when Claremont first created Jubilee, that she had the potential to use her mutant powers with incredibly dangerous force. So Synch was able to do it for her, take on her powers and use it in a way she never would have. So everyone survived, but there's just a little kind of thought I have about this, and that is, if the Phalanx entity has placed techno-organic matter in Banshee's throat to keep him quiet, and Synch uses Jubilee's power to detonate that matter at a subatomic level, how has Banshee survived that? How come his jaw isn't blown off? That's what I want to know. If you can explain that one in the comments, I'll give you a no prize myself. So then there arrives a representation of Stephen Lang, and Banshee recognizes him. Lang, you're involved in this. You are Stephen Lang, the madman who tried to kill the X-Men years ago with a Sentinel attack. So Banshee's referring back to Uncanny X-Men number 98 to 100. when he himself was taken prisoner by Lang. So he has personal experience of the man. And then Lang explains, in a manner of speaking, Cassidy, actually I'm projecting my consciousness through the techno-organic mesh. But that's unimportant. What does matter, however, is that you recognize the fact that resistance is truly futile. You see, X-Men, this day of triumph over your kind has been in preparation for a long time. And in many ways, we've had the help of those who knew you best. Candy Southern, Cameron Hodge, and this old friend. And this is very interesting here, because this turns out to be Sarah Gray, long missing sister of your Marvel girl. She's, and so he's using Jean's old code name there. She's a recalcitrant sort, never really sublimating her stubborn will properly to the interests of the Phalanx. And Sarah Gray, this is a long-standing mystery going back to the Claremont-Simonson era and going all the way back to the Mutant Massacre period, when Sarah Gray was, her house was firebombed in X Factor issue number 12. And when Wolverine and Storm came across the wreckage in Uncanny X-Men 215. And so Sarah Gray hasn't been seen in the X-Comics since then. So here she is, and she's been absorbed partially into the techno-organic entity that is the Phalanx. And Emma here has something to say to Lang. She says, Lang, listen to me. You have to see through your idiotic prejudice. Lang wants mutants wiped off the face of the earth. And acknowledge the fact that the Phalanx have grown far beyond your ability to control them. You're playing with fire, Lang, she says. These are no longer simply fanatics who have accepted the transmode virus. There's something more. And that's what Lang was worried about earlier. But now he boasts by showing Paige Guthrie to them, and concludes, and so another of your precious next generation of mutants falls to the onslaught of the Phalanx. I'll see you broken, mutants, in spirit as well as body. The age of humanity is assured. So things midway through the crossover are looking grim, or at least they're 50-50, because Banshee and Storm and Emma Frost have saved Jubilee and now Everett Thomas, but Monet St. Croix and Paige Guthrie are in the hands, so to speak, of the Phalanx. So Banshee's upset here. But Frost got a bead on Paige Guthrie's location, a general location, so they've got a little lead there to work with. Next of all, Jubilee notices something's off. She says, guys, listen to me. Haven't you noticed someone's been kind of conspicuously absent by his silence, not to mention his charming personality? So this takes both Frost and Banshee by surprise. Good lord, Banshee recognized the wrist detonator. So that wrist detonator would detonate the muzzle that Sabretooth was wearing, but it's been damaged. It was damaged in the fight against the Phalanx. And so Sabretooth has escaped. There's his manacles and muzzle on the ground. Next, the last hope for the next generation to find out, it's a rhetorical question. The last hope for the next generation, find out in Uncanny X-Men 317. So there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men Volume 2, number 36, Part 2 of Generation Next, the introduction of the new X title, Generation X, and its team of young new mutants. If you enjoyed this video, please like it on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.